name's Fred White. I'm the president of the Historical Society and the Fredericton Region Museum. The museum is operated by Historical Society. We're a volunteer, not-for-profit organization. We have 1 full-time paid staff and about 10 part-time staff that we raise for. We get the building for $1 a year from the government in a great location. It cost them $12,000 a year to heat it before we got it. So we have about 150 members, and we have about 100 volunteers who work throughout the year. Anything that you see as you go through the building will have been done by a volunteer. We have guest curators. We live in a great city, people with lots of expertise, retired professors, retired civil servants, young people who just want to start their profession, who come in and help us put exhibits together. We use a guest curator. We try and involve the art community with what we do. We've had artists in residence. We have our first solo artist in residence this summer, who's starting. So it will be very interesting. A lady from Cuba who is educated in Colombia. We also will have a little art set up in the middle, so it's not all history and it's art. We started this exhibit. Brian McDonald gave us the call and said, "There are these great paintings," and we were involved. We have our War of 1812 exhibit, and we had all our celebrations. We've worked with the War of 1812 committee, and Brian said, "You should do something." And we said, "Okay." We think so too, because we thought the paintings were great, the subjects were certainly appropriate, and we could make a venue. We moved some stuff around, and this is it today, and we're very, very pleased to have you. You know, who knows, you invite people from Madawaska County, and you see some old friends, some really good friends come along too, so I'm really pleased with that. I've got to wave these books around because there's representatives of Greg Center here, and there's Gary Campbell, another member, Bob Dallison. But Gary's got 2 books in this series, The Road to Canada and the Aroostook War of 1812, and then Bob Dallison did the Neighbourly War. You'll find some of the War of 1812 in Gary Campbell's book too. Gary Campbell's on the board of directors of the Fredericton Museum, and he was a technical professional advisor to the St. John River Society. So we'll be doing more with these books later, but it's significant when you're in the history business and you see the Greg Center, and we can be part, and our members can be part of producing, like excellent books on topical subjects. Even though if they are 200 years old, they're still topical to us. I'd like to acknowledge Colonel Burton, the CO of our NDR, who's here, who's joined us today. Thank you very much, sir, for taking the time. I got to meet him when they had the snowshoe race February 16th, and some of his men they had 8 teams, and some of his men won the race, and we were able to provide their trophy that they had. And we had an excellent rainy day, cold, and we still had crowds, and a wonderful day on the 16th to sort of kick it off. If you've got the program, you can see that what we're going to follow, and I'll try and be a little shorter. I'd like to thank Picaroons for joining us for this. It was so appropriate when Sean Dunbar is here, and we're trying to celebrate the War of 1812 the best we can with an exhibit, and with only 1 paid staff, and we're really, my background's accounting and sort of management. I'm not much of a marketer, so when you can get, and that's what it is, public and private partnerships. We draw 8,000 people into the community, and the businesses that are around should benefit from that. However it is, not just, we keep the people for a couple of hours, they have to go eat, they have to go drink, but they should also know there's nice growing industries that employ people, and that Sean is an exceptional community citizen. You just have to talk to anyone and you can find out that he's been involved in whatever's going on. So with that, giving you my little blurbs, I'll ask Brian McDonald to come forward.
Merci Fred. Nous sommes vraiment chanceux d'avoir un musée comme le musée de Fredericton Region ici, et vraiment chanceux d'avoir un président comme Fred et une équipe très forte avec Ruth Murgatroyd et votre directeur. We are really lucky to have such a good team here. The Fredericton Region Museum, I think, are real leaders in telling of our province's history. And we're lucky to have them headquartered right here in Fredericton, and they've done great outreach. And what amazes me is we don't provide them with a ton of funding, as Fred mentioned. We provide them with a building, which is great, but it is amazing always to me to see the kind of work that they can do, and that you can do, because many of you are directors on the board, that you can do with a little bit of funding, a lot of creativity, and a lot of passion for what you do. So first off, I want to begin by thanking Fred, Ruth, and your board. So thank you very much. Je suis ici au nom de mes collègues de la législature, de l'Assemblée législative. Nous avons avec nous aujourd'hui M. Bev Harrison, député, et aussi je représente aujourd'hui M. Yvon Bonenfant et le ministre Madeleine Dubé. They're unable to be here because they're in the legislature sitting, but they are very proud. Ils sont vraiment fiers de votre travail, et they've empowered me to be here today to represent them to you. So it's a real pleasure. I also want to echo Fred's words. We're joined today by a few of the partners. We have an incredible team that have celebrated the War of 1812 over the last year, and we're looking forward to events over the next year. And I look out into the crowd and I see a lot of familiar and friendly faces. Colonel Ron Burton's already been recognized. We're also joined by the regimental historian Captain Dave Hughes, who has himself participated, has been the spine and the constant face of the 104th across this province and into Quebec and Ontario. It's great to have you here with us, Dave. And of course we have the St. John River Society, a number of whom are represented here today. Certainly the Executive Director, Molly Dema, and the administrative force to be reckoned with, Anna Maria Hartley, who's here somewhere, who's always counted on to make these events a success. As well, we have Gary Hamble, our resident historian, and I think we may have Brent Wilson here somewhere as well, representing the Gregg Center. So as you can see, we have a great team. And today is a result of the creativity of this group of artists, and it's also a result of some great creative thinking. And another creative thinker who's here with us is Randall Hazlitt, who's responsible for the Geo Tour. So I do want to recognize Randall, who's here with us.
He is a great thinker.
That's where you were. Comme vous savez, j'ai rencontré votre groupe d'artistes pendant ma création de la marche du 104e régiment cet hiver. Et j'ai été très impressionné de votre esprit et de votre passion artistique. Dans vos peintures, vous avez communiqué le son de cette marche historique qui fait partie de notre histoire partagée. You have, by the spirit of your paintings, captured the spirit of the march. And that is part of our shared history. And I'm proud that it's here. I'm proud that it was exhibited in Edmundston. I'm proud that it was exhibited in our legislature. And I'm proud that it's exhibited here today as part of this opening. And I'm also glad to hear that you've been invited, I guess, to Gananoque and maybe parts further upriver to once again tell the important story of New Brunswick's contribution that made the foundations for our great country. So without further ado, I'm going to call upon, I guess, our next speaker, Monsieur Georges Perus, who is going to speak on behalf of Les Artistes. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon. I'm not much of a public speaker, but certainly on behalf of the group, we're quite humbled by the turnout. We're quite happy to be here on this important day. We're making history with Picaroons. I can tell you in '74, I had spent 3 years in the university at UNB, and Picaroons was not around, but I would have encouraged you at that point. On a more serious note, I'd like to thank Ruth, Elizabeth, and all her staff, but in particular, Brian McDonald, who has been instrumental. I was quite impressed when I first met Brian in Amherst. Brian nous a parlé en français, il est venu nous visiter dans la République du Madawaska, il s'est lié d'amitié avec nous. Nous a ouvert des portes ici à Fredericton. So thanks for all your effort and your interest in this historical event. I must confess that at first when this project was discussed in Edmonton for the Historical Society and la Société Culturelle de Saint-Basile, I was absent at the meeting. But my good friends twisted my arms and said you have to be part of this project. And I'm not much of a historian, but it's been quite an adventure and very enriching, and I'm quite fulfilled by what's been happening in the last few months. I don't want to be too long. I know you're interested in getting to the end and showing the nice Picaroon, so we'll move along quickly. But I'd like to thank my colleagues and introduce the artists and invite you to share and enjoy the paintings downstairs, which recreate the march from Grand Falls to a little over the Quebec border near Cabinot, when they did their trek on difficult conditions on snowshoes. And if you were not as familiar as you think about the history of the march, I think it's an event in New Brunswick that was left dormant for many years, but I'm very happy and quite happy that New Brunswick is part of it. And we as New Brunswickers can bring these paintings to Ontario, where the march and the war ended. So thanks very much. Enjoy the painting. Quite happy to have a colonel and a captain in the room, because I think this all ties everything together. The members of the St. John River Society, members of different organizations and with the government and so on, we thank you all. I don't want to go through the list again. Brian did such a good job, so I just take his list and repeat it, and thanks very much. This is